What's up, everybody? Sam Walker here for the Walkout Network. Welcome to the Walk of Shame for UFC London. Man, this is immediately after, so I'm still a little bit hyped up after what we just saw happen. Jorge Masvidal knocks out Darren Till in the second round, and that's just really not the result a lot of us were expecting. But man, what a great fight that was. Initially going into this fight, I picked Darren Till to win. I thought that this fight would come down to what a lot of Masvidal's fights come down to, and that's just simply a difference in his mentality of what a win equals in mixed martial arts as opposed to what it equals in street fighting, which is his original background. So I really thought that with Till and Masvidal, both guys who are pretty good counter strikers and guys who can, when they feel like it, kind of be patient and wait for the other guy to make the first move. I thought we'd see a lot of them kind of staring at each other with occasional bursts of violence. And with this being in London, with this being such a heavily Till crowd favorite, that he would kind of get that crowd excitement and get the judges to look his way when it came down to put those 10s and 9s down on the scorecard, much like what happened with the Wonder Boy fight. So I really am very surprised that it ended the way it did. I mean, if you thought it was going to be a finish, I thought Till would have, especially the way the fight started, with the exception of course, the accidental nut shot to start everything off, man. But to see Till floor Masvidal very soon after the action was restarted, you thought, oh man, like he's putting his power on. He was landing some really, really good shots as well. I kind of thought that was going to be it, man. I thought Till was going to eventually get his number, but we just forget how good Masvidal is. His record. Don't let his record fool you. Let me just so I don't misquote anything. His record stands at 33-13 right now. And you think, 33 wins in mixed martial arts is definitely a big achievement. But to have 13 losses, you think like, man, that's such a like a middling record, you would assume. But then you look back at what those losses mean. You look at his last two fights was a decision loss to Wonder Boy Thompson at UFC 217. And before that, he lost to Damian Maia. I can't remember what event that was. Let me look that up really quick. UFC 211. Yeah, so in the very recent past, we've seen Masvidal lose these fights. But let's keep in mind what he did against Damian Maia. He out grappled, well, not necessarily out grappled. He was able to negate a lot of what Damian Maia was able to do when Maia was destroying everybody that they put in front of him. He was a guy who was able to take some really good fighters to the brink and just come up barely short on the decisions. So we always tend to forget what Jorge Masvidal has to offer. And he's kind of like this dark horse in the division. You can put him in there with a Damian Maia, and he's not going to get washed. You can put him in there against a striker like Darren Till, and you see the results. Like, this is when you're talking about just someone who's so purely well-rounded in mixed martial arts that we don't talk enough about. Gamebred Masvidal is the guy. Like, he is the guy. And I like what this says, man, because if you beat Darren Till, granted his stock drops after two losses, two finishes on his behalf from Tyron Woodley and now, of course, Masvidal. But man, you beat a name like Darren Till that they've been hyping up, that they have given this second, I believe it's the second main event in England to. You got to start talking about what's next for Masvidal. Like, what can he provide next? And I think no matter who you put him up against, it's going to be a rough night. So of course we know Ben Askren is there at the arena, and he's been making his presence known in fight week and campaigning for the winner of this fight. And I love that matchup. And quite frankly, man, aside from Robbie Lawler, and we saw what Robbie Lawler did against Ben Askren, Jorge Masvidal is on that short list of guys that Ben Askren may not be so eager to see. He just may not want to really get a whiff of that smoke. Because Masvidal is one of those guys who you're not just going to wash him in any particular category. You're just not going to do it. You know, and I think we saw it once again, like Darren Till being this highly touted kickboxer, this guy who's massive. I mean, he looked like he was 2 weight classes bigger than Masvidal today, and he got floored as a result. Jorge Masvidal is a guy we need to talk about a lot more, and we need to take very, very, very seriously, very seriously. I'm really, really excited for what the future holds for him, man. There's some potential really, really, really good things that we can see from him. Oh yeah, shout out to the homie Matt Hunter in the chat right now, and please do what he says. Press that like button, share it as well. Definitely want to get everyone involved here on the conversation, and I hope you guys enjoy all the content that I have for you here on the Walkout Network. Yeah, man. So yeah, I'm still kind of in shock of what we just saw from Jorge Masvidal. Like I'm not surprised he won, even though I picked against him, but just the method. You gotta love, man, how his counter striking is just so effective. Like just when you think he like lulls you into this false sense of security, that he's laying back and he's like waiting for Till to do something, and Till does a little something. He lands a couple shots here and there, man, but then Masvidal just explodes. And I love the way, I think it was Dan Hardy that pointed out, and more on Dan Hardy and Paul Felder and the commentary team for today's they show a little bit later. But I love how they pointed out that finishing sequence was just straight from the Tyron Woodley playbook. To the switch stances into the power shots is such a perfectly Tyron Woodley thing to do. And of course they were training partners at ATT for some time. So man, I'm really excited for what the future holds for Jorge Masvidal. Now, when you're looking at Darren Till, I mean, I think it's very clear now. We need to dial this back with Darren Till. He's still, and no shame in losing to Tyron Woodley and Jorge Masvidal. Those are clearly two of the best guys at 170 in the world. 99.99999% of 170 pounders in the world you put in front of them will not survive that evening. We know this. But you know, when Darren Till is the focus of so much of the promotional material, and this is something that Woodley definitely seemed to take issue with, understandably so. When someone is that level of hyped up, and they're getting these main events, and they're getting this big push from the promotion, you got to deliver. When that bell rings, man, you got to deliver. You got to get your hand raised, and that's it. And while we can rely on Darren Till for action, as we've seen in these last couple of fights, I mean, he's been on the wrong end of the action, and that formula can only go so far before you fall out of favor to where you get this main event in your home country, to where you get to be the featured fighter, to make a guest appearance at this event and whatnot. Like that, you start falling out of that favor, and your stock will drop. And I think for Till's best interest, because I believe he's like 24 years old, man, dial it back as much as you can to go ahead and take a fighter that's much lower ranked and get that win, get that confidence back, because it's not guaranteed, man. It's not guaranteed. Just because you came out the gate with a hot start does not mean you'll finish that way. So yeah, let's and a couple good questions here. Let me make sure I pull these up on the other. Oh, what up, Fugati? What's going on with you, man? All right, so let's see here. So we got a good question from the homie Matt Hunter on the chat, but I'm going to address another question first that's popping up from my homie Jay at Sherdog. He says, is this the biggest win of Masvidal's career? Yes, it is. I mean, you can argue that the Cowboy Cerrone win is his biggest one. I mean, I believe that was a main event as well on UFC on Fox, and that was definitely at a time where Cerrone was just smoking hot. But to go to London and upset Darren Till, a guy who as you know just said was the promotion was really liking, that says a lot, man. That is a big deal to go ahead and put it on on Darren Till in London. So yeah, I got to say this is the biggest win of Masvidal's career, and I think it's going to be the one that propels him to these legitimate talks of title shots, man. Granted, the Cerrone win could have been that. He stumbled a little bit following that fight. So yeah, losing to Damian Maia knocked him out of that conversation. Damian Maia, of course, went on to go ahead and take that title opportunity at UFC 214. But still, man, Darren Till, Jorge Masvidal's best scalp that he's got in his collection, and then especially when you factor in the size difference and the method of doing it, to floor him like that in the second round. Granted, he did the same thing to Cerrone, but Darren Till being the bigger kickboxer, and Cerrone being another guy who was at 155 and went up. I think that puts Darren Till's win, the win against Darren Till above the Cerrone win. All right, so let me address one more question right here. So the homie Matt Hunter asks, also for the discussion of underrated fighters, who's the most underrated fighter ever? Masvidal, Poirier, JDS, Rafael Assunção, other. Oh man, I don't know. That's a big question right there to encompass the entire MMA world. But I think for the purposes of this conversation, man, you gotta go Masvidal. I think you have to go off the top of my head. That seems to be the best direction to go, man, because Jorge Masvidal has come so close to beating some really big names. I mean, he gave Gilbert Melendez all he could handle, if I'm remembering that Strikeforce title fight properly. Also, man, he was so close to beating Benson Henderson. He really got robbed in the Al Iaquinta fight. Jorge Masvidal has touched greatness so many times. Had a decision loss against Paul Daly. I mean, he's kind of tapped that greatness so many times, and the only time I can ever remember him just getting washed was the Toby Amata fight in Bellator, like 35 years ago, whatever the hell it was. Like, that was a long time ago. At least it seems like it was long ago in my mind. So yeah, Masvidal wins that now. Out of the names you listed, Rafael Assunção, I think, is worthy of being mentioned in that conversation. And of course, that loss to Marlon Moraes may sour that conversation a little bit for all the newcomers who are unaware of what Rafael Assunção did before that and how close he was to his title shot at bantamweight. But yeah, man. So another question from the homie Jay. He asks, is this now the time for Till to move up to middleweight? Why the hell not, man? Why not? Like, clearly there is going to be a reset attached to what Darren Till does next. Like, there's clearly a need for a reset. And I think it would make sense for that reset to happen at middleweight, because right now it looks like he's exhausted himself at welterweight. And the weight cut, very noted to be a big struggle for him as well. Why take yourself through that if it's not going to get you those results that you're looking for? And then when you think about the chin issues, like, granted, I don't necessarily think Darren Till has a bad chin, but if you get floored by Woodley, and then get beaten down by Masvidal with strikes, get you put on your butt, man. Maybe the chin holds up better without that weight cut. That's something to think about. And imagine what Darren Till will be capable of if those shots didn't put him down in both of those last two fights. I think it's something worth considering. Not to mention that he would be able to train differently, to where a lot of his training wouldn't necessarily be focused on that fight with the scale, but it will be about improving yourself as a fighter. Getting that wrestling in, getting that clinch work in, getting in the technical training that's going to help propel what clearly is a very, very greatly athletically talented man into something greater than what he is now. I think middleweight is definitely the way to go. And it's really a shame that he didn't just take the opportunity after losing to Woodley to just move up to middleweight. Of course, if you're getting that title shot, you stay at that weight class, even if you've shown a repeated inability to make the weight comfortably. Yeah, you're getting that title opportunity, and that's a big deal. So you take it. But that title opportunity ain't coming anytime soon. you know, and it's really unfortunate for him because with Woodley dropping the belt so recently, man, that's just electrified some of these guys that Woodley has turned away in his title reign. So when we see, I believe it's next week that we see Wonderboy Thompson versus Anthony Pettis. Now, how silly and irrelevant that fight should be to the welterweight title picture, you got to think, man. Pettis gets if Thompson gets a spectacular win, I think they might be talking about him in a title shot again before long, you know. And this was a golden opportunity for Darren Till to resurrect that talk about his career. But if you're going back to the drawing board, go back to the drawing board where it's going to be easier on your body and you give yourself more flexibility and more room to improve as a fighter, as opposed to just having that same approach going into the next fight at welterweight. You know, and as far as future opponents for him, man, I'm not mad at a Mike Perry fight. That doesn't upset me one bit. You could match him up if you want to do the old Joe Silva style of matchmaking with loser versus loser, fighting around the same time. That I'm not thinking of that would be good. And by all means, please, if you are thinking of something, just go right ahead and throw that in the comment section. All right, so from James to Saint, he says, also for the what do you think the result of Ben Askren versus Jorge Masvidal will be if it does happen? Man, if it does happen, man, I don't know. I don't know, but I am not going to jump out on the limb and just say that this is going to be a Ben Askren domination. It very well could be. But when you look at what Masvidal has had to offer against all the specialists that he has fought, they have not been able to just reign supreme on their specialties. You know, I'll refer to that Damian Maia fight again. If you are on the ground with Damian Maia in these extended grappling exchanges, yeah, man, like most people are tapping out very, very soon. That wasn't the case for Masvidal. He won a lot of that fight as well. So I don't think that Ben Askren walks out of there unscathed, even if he does have the win. So I say put that fight together, man. Put that fight together. A win for either guy is spectacular for the title picture. And I think Masvidal is also one of these underrated personalities that we don't get to see a whole lot. Oh man, I'm now hearing that Masvidal and Leon Edwards just got into quote unquote a legit fight at the post-fight presser, throwing punches and everything. Well, ladies and gentlemen, your next fight that's going to be relevant to the welterweight title picture is Jorge Masvidal versus Leon Edwards. Oh man, that is nuts. I like that fight too. Shit, line it up, man. Welterweight is so exciting right now. I'm really, really happy to see what's going on in this division. All right, from Trav Terra, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Forgive me if that is incorrect. Is Jorge not the perfect example why there should be a 165-pound division? Yeah, I mean, he's definitely one of those guys that would fill out a 165-pound division very comfortably. He definitely, I think he's optimal at 155, but we have heard that he isn't exactly the most disciplined when it comes to his diet leading up to a fight. So making 155 probably requires him to be a little more structured on the nutrition than he cares to be. Probably involves a different level of training. Not sure if his body, you know, at 34 years old has trouble handling it or whatnot. So maybe 155 for those reasons is a little difficult for him. But he clearly is a force at 170. At 165, yeah, he'd be a force as well. And it would eliminate some of the monsters that he would fight, like a Darren Till, that would probably make an easier path toward title contention for him in that one. So good question right there, Trav. All right, let's see. Gotti says, man, it's a tough fight for Ben, especially when you think that Ben will offer 0 striking attempts. And Masvidal has great countering ability and some good power. Yeah, perfect point. Perfect point. Like that is just not something that Ben Askren really, really, really wants, at least if he's trying to get out of that fight without messing up his hair. It's just that simple. It's really that simple. I think there's a reason why, beyond the fact that he seemed to be fond of Robbie Lawler, that he didn't want that fight as well. Like that's stylistically, that is a rough day at the office. You know, when you don't offer anything in the striking realm, and keep in mind, Jorge Masvidal is one of the underrated kickers in the game. He's a great counter boxer. Like he does a lot of good things on the feet. So when you don't have that to offer to confuse him enough to get that takedown, whoa, man, good luck getting it. Good luck getting it. Oh, yeah. So, and James Tusink says, I feel like Ben should work on getting better in stand-up. He's just so one-dimensional and relying on his wrestling. Imagine if Ben Askren had good stand-up as well. Yeah, that's definitely, man. I will say, without going too far down the rabbit hole, so we stay a little bit more on the UFC London topic. I was very surprised watching at 235, man, what little he had to offer on the feet. Now, of course, we've seen him in one championship. We've seen that he pretty much just shoots in for that takedown wholesale, and he gets it, and he dominates you 9 times out of 10. We know this already about him, but I really thought he would show at least something, at least maybe a halfway decent jab that gets Lawler to put his hands up and not think about that shot for just a split second, enough for him to be able to close the distance and do it. Yeah, man. So let's see what we got next. Oh, yeah. So Jay's giving me a description of what seemed to happen at the post-fight presser. Masvidal was giving an interview, looked over to Edwards, who was trash talking off camera, walks over and lays into him. Yep, that is your next fight at welterweight. That is the next big fight that we'll be looking forward to, man. If there is, I'm waiting to, when this broadcast is over, I'm going to look at some footage of this. If anybody can post a link on the YouTube chat for me to look at some point, I really got to see this, man. If there is a good camera view of this, if there is good footage of this, good clean looking footage, your commercial has already been filmed. So to manage to film a career, managed to film a commercial without an airborne dolly. So that is a step in the right direction for the staff that creates these commercials. All right. Oh man. I'm actually getting descriptions of the fight on the YouTube chat. Shout out to everybody who's jumping in on this, letting me know what's going on. Moy's Audio, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, my man. He says Jorge landed 3-piece combo on Leon Edwards. A 3-piece combo and snapped his head back. Leon had a water bottle in his hand. Man, you can't make this shit up. Oh man, you can't make this shit up. I swear, if this wasn't one of those, up until the last couple of fights on the card, and really, I'll say up until the main event, because there was a lot to dislike throughout this card. Man, it was one of those things that gives you one of them existential crises. Like, man, why am I doing this shit? Well, why am I following this sport so closely? This is a circus. Yeah, man. Ringling Brothers just called Masvidal versus Leon Edwards, coming to ESPN Plus in the near future. You can mark my words on that one right there. All right, so all right, now let me take a look at my notes here so we can go ahead and talk about some of the rest of this card, and we might as well just keep the topic of conversation. Leon Edwards, who gave Gunnar Nelson the business today. He gave him the business. My initial pick was for Gunnar Nelson to win this, and I thought that, I think as far as like your typical striking skills in mixed martial arts, Leon Edwards is far and away the better striker on that end than Gunnar Nelson. But Gunnar Nelson's blend of karate and Brazilian jiu-jitsu is just so unique, because as was pointed on the broadcast, most of the time you're seeing Muay Thai combined with a little bit of boxing, with wrestling, with jiu-jitsu, and you're kind of seeing that same stack of styles. But this time with Gunnar Nelson, man, he provides this strange hybrid of unconventional striking with an unconventional jiu-jitsu approach, which I think is pretty interesting. And I thought that would be enough to get the win over Leon Edwards. I thought that maybe he would actually have like a he would have the ability to get that clinch and drag him down at some point, even with Edwards being able to like piece him up from a distance. I thought maybe Gunnar could jump in with one of those karate style strikes, the way, you know, karate guys kind of close that distance really fast. Thought he'd be able to jump in, close that distance with a strike, initiate a clinch, and then kind of drag him down. And once the fight got there, I thought it was Nelson's to lose, but looks like I was wrong, man. Leon Edwards, man, he was actually out grappling Gunnar Nelson for extended periods of time during that fight. Like, that was nuts. That was really, really nuts that he would do that. I'm really shocked by that, and I do think that that Leon Edwards, I think you can't, once again, you can't really ignore this dude. You know, so I'm also getting let me check this YouTube question out from Owens Griffiths. As I wonder if Masvidal really wants that fight though. One step forward, one step back. It's a good point. It's a very good point. But I think with a finish like that over Till and Edwards dominating Gunnar Nelson, and this being on the same card, and them actually now having some sort of real beef, that I'm not mad at that fight, and I don't think either one of them would be too mad at that fight. If you put that as a main event, either one of them walks out with that win, and you are still in that title conversation. Of course, if you are Jorge Masvidal and you get offered a more prominent name, you get offered Tyron Woodley coming off of his loss, or you get offered, I don't know, a rematch with Damian Maia or something like that, you probably go in that direction. You would probably step in that way, but I do think that we have kind of forgotten almost about Leon Edwards, man. The UFC has not done him many favors as far as matchmaking goes, as far as kind of giving him a boost, despite the success that we've seen him have. So, you know, just looking at his recent record, I mean, of course, once again, we're talking about another guy who was able to get a win over Cowboy. And that's a big deal. That's a very big deal, and that's something that we should not be ignoring at all. But he also was able to get a win over both Vicente Luque and Brian Barberena, who are guys that we clearly have a lot of respect for, and they're highly regarded. And they just put on a fantastic fight just a few weeks back. Albert Tumanov, another very good win. And so he's had quality wins before. He really has. And I don't think he's been, this is like the first time, I guess, aside from the Cerrone fight, that he's really been given a name boost, like a name that just someone outside of the general bubble can say, hey, that's a quality win. So if you're Leon Edwards, yeah, you probably want that Masvidal fight, especially now. You want to get revenge for that three-piece you just ate. So yeah, there's that, man. But as far as the fight itself goes, let me grab my notes here, man. Please, someone tell me if anybody can jump on the chat right now and tell me, like, how was this a split decision? In what world were those judges watching that fight? Somebody tweeted me and was saying it probably was a judge who wrote the number on the wrong side of the paper and just wasn't paying attention to who was Masvidal and who was Nelson in the fight. And that's the only excuse you have. That's literally the only excuse. The idea that some judge scored this fight for Gunnar Nelson is ridiculous. You are an idiot. Turn in your badge. You are done. Like, you don't need to be judging a fight. If you saw Gunnar Nelson winning that fight, he won that fight in no way, shape, or form. that's it. Like, he was nearly finished in the second round. He got outworked in the first round. And third round, hey, kind of a wash. Like, it doesn't. That really irritated me. That really irritated me. And if you're Leon Edwards, man, if I'm him, I'm cursing out everybody in that damn crowd. How crazy is it that Leon Edwards is the English fighter? He is the English fighter. Has consistently fought in England as well. Consistently been there. Been a regular presence in England, and this guy gets booed. This guy gets booed when the guy who wasn't English. Granted, he has got close ties to popular guys in the region or whatever, and he's European. But I mean, come on now. They're booing the English. They're booing the English guy while cheering the guy on who's not from England. Hey, what do I know? Doesn't make a lot of sense for me. And also note from the homie Jay that all 22 media members who were scoring the bout and had it recorded on MMAdecisions.com said this was a win for Leon Edwards. If you're arguing any other thing than that, you really don't know what you're talking about. And I will disrespectfully, just shoot down anything you say, because, shut up. Yeah, just shut up if that's really what you think. All right, so next up, Volkan Oezdemir loses a very, very narrow decision to Dominick Reyes. I'm not mad at this decision at all, man. I scored it 29-28 for Reyes. And I see if you scored it for Oezdemir. I'm not mad at it. But it just looked like to me that Reyes was doing more actual effective work. I had the first round for Oezdemir and the last two for Reyes. And I think and I find it really interesting, too, because Reyes, his nose was definitely bothering him. Not sure, I guess he got hit at the top of his nose and it affected his breathing. And he was definitely noticeably a little gassed and had some trouble trying to catch his breath through some parts of that fight, but he still won it, man. He still won it. He was able to land the more effective shots at the right times. And while at least up until the end of the second round, like, Oezdemir was the one pressing forward, like in the second round, I don't think Oezdemir really landed a whole lot. I think Reyes was hitting him with much more effective shots. I think he was moving around appropriately, and Oezdemir was trying to chase him down, and he really couldn't do anything. And by the time the third round started, it really wasn't much that Oezdemir had to offer, even with Reyes being depleted, that he was able to just walk him down and just kind of land strikes at will. And granted, a lot of us, myself included, were predicting a finish from Reyes, but I think this was a good fight for him. I think it was a very good fight. It showed his ability to fight through adversity after losing that first round, after having his breathing compromised and his health not what it should have been going into the second and third round. But he was able to still get the win. He was able to still prove himself effective, still even be the aggressor in that last round. That shows a lot, man. That shows things that you want to see from someone who we're looking at as a potential title challenger in the future. I think we need to applaud what Dominick Reyes did. And anybody calling out robbery, I'm sorry, you are sadly mistaken. You're just wrong if you're calling this a robbery. Hey, say Oezdemir won. Say you think that Oezdemir won the first and the second round. He should have got the decision. I'm not mad at that. I'm not going to die on that hill. But I will tell you this. That was not a robbery. That was a close fight. And I know I said it before on this channel. I'm sure I'll say it a million more times. Robbery is a word that we use way, way too often in mixed martial arts. Just doesn't apply to a lot of these situations, today included. All right. So as far as the future for both guys, I mean, Volkan Oezdemir, man, Volkan Ozdemir's got guys to fight. I mean, 205 is still kind of a wasteland. It's still not a lot of good options at 205. So for if you're Volkan Oezdemir, man, you can fight. Just pick one. Just pick a guy who's got a recent loss. And throw him in there. Makes sense. Like at this point, we can't really say that Volkan Oezdemir is a guy that belongs in the title picture, dropping his last two, granted, or last three, actually. Granted, one of those being a title challenge against Daniel Cormier. But I just don't know what we do next with him. I really don't. Like, maybe that Shogun fight got canceled. Maybe you throw him in against Shogun just to give him something to do. I'm sure Jimmy Manuwa would want to run it back, but if you're Oezdemir, why would you run that back after knocking him out so quickly in the first fight? Same thing with Misha Serkinov. Misha Serkinov taking a recent loss as well. Yeah, at this point, maybe you just offer him up to a Johnny Walker. Yeah, maybe you just offer him up in that sense, because I think we've seen his ceiling. I genuinely think we've seen his ceiling. I'm not sure what else he has to offer, and I would love to be proven wrong. And he's still a fairly young guy. I think he's 27. I think. Let me look that up. I think he's 27. 29. Excuse me. Yeah, he might have. He has something left to offer, but you just throw him in there and give him something to do. I say Shogun would be an appropriate next guy. Yeah, so that's that. As far as Dominick Reyes and Owen Griffiths asking who's next for Reyes, right there with you, my man. Dominick Reyes, man, I'm still not sold on him contending for the title right away. If I don't want him next up after Thiago Santos, but the unfortunate part is there's not much room for him to go up. There's really not. Like, maybe you can throw him in there against Corey Anderson, who apparently just lost the Alexander Gustafsson fight since they've put Anthony Smith in that spot now. Yeah, maybe you can throw him in there with with somebody of that caliber, and it makes sense. But still, we're kind of in that dangerous part about killing off contenders, and with light heavyweight being so bleak. What do you do? These guys that are Reyes is still clearly a guy who's developing. It's hard to just throw him in there without getting too close to title contention. Jan Blachowicz, that's a good call from Jay right there. Jan Blachowicz, I like that. I like that for him. That would be an appropriate test as well. But once you get past that, like, who's next? Like, who's left? And I think despite his call out, I don't think John Jones is really watching this fight getting worried, man. I don't think there was a bit in that fight that would worry John Jones that he would have any trouble handling. Now, of course, that is a very high bar to set, and I do think it is kind of reckless to counter the productivity of a guy who is making his case for a title shot with, oh, he doesn't stand a chance against the champion. I don't like that argument. I think that negates the fact that a guy fights for an opportunity and you give it to him. So I don't want to go too far down that train, but I would like to see Dominick Reyes develop more. I'm just afraid that we are going to hit that point very soon with him, that it just doesn't matter anymore, that he is next up because there's no one else. And an underdeveloped Dominick Reyes steps in there against the MMA savant that is John Jones and just gets destroyed. So, I mean, hey, that's what but the fight's got to happen. So Dominick Reyes, yeah, Jan Blachowicz could be next. I'm not mad at that. Whatever keeps Reyes active and building, but not in the title fight just yet, I'm all in favor. Jan Blachowicz fits the bill. Good call, Jay. All right, so next up, I mean, I quite honestly don't want to talk about a lot of the fights on this card. I don't. Like, we'll go through, we'll mention them, and we'll just go ahead and get that off, just to be completely thorough and professional here. But yeah, so the next up was Arnold Allen and Jordan Rinaldi. That fight goes to Nathaniel Wood and Jose Quinones was next. That went to the second round where Nathaniel Wood submitted him with a rear naked choke. Yeah, I mean, this was kind of a squash match in my opinion when this got put together. That was my immediate thought. I mean, Nathaniel Wood was supposed to win. The guy who fights out of London, from London, fighting in London. Yeah, you know, you put him in there against Quinones, who has proven himself to be a very, very good fighter, but it just wasn't going to work, man. This was Wood's fight to lose, and he did not. He went in there and did exactly what he was supposed to do. So, enough of that one. What else we got? Sorry, my computer is slowing down just a little bit here. Yeah, so before the Nathaniel Wood Quinones fight was Claudio Silva and Danny Roberts. This was an exciting fight. I really like this fight. And this was one that I struggled with picking. I just wasn't sure who was going to win. I ended up last minute deciding it was going to be Silva. I'm glad I did because my pick was right. But Claudio Silva, man, he was putting it on Danny Roberts. And I just love what he offered him, man. I love that he was able to dominate position so well at certain points, but still, like, he had to fight through adversity. Like Danny Roberts did not make himself look bad in any way, shape, or form. Danny Roberts went out there and hurt Claudio Silva several times, but it just wasn't quite enough to get the W and get the ref to stop it until, of course, he got himself in a bad position. And now I was told on Twitter that there is a verbal there was a verbal submission video actually circulating on Reddit where like somebody altered the audio a bit so you can hear him scream in pain or verbally tap or whatever the case may be. But from the broadcast, and in fact when the truck tried to replay it, it didn't reflect that at all. The audio was all screwed up in that, so I didn't hear anything. But either way, man, like, whether you agree with that stoppage or not, how ridiculous is it that Danny Roberts, after dropping Silva, jumped right into his guard? Why? Like, it just made no sense. I mean, this was at that point, Danny Roberts owned this fight. He owned this fight. We saw what was going on with him on the ground versus Silva in that first round, and how despite him getting the sweep at the very end and landing a couple ground and pound strikes right as the bell rung, like, he was having a lot of trouble on the ground with Silva. Silva clearly wanted this fight on the ground, and that was his best path to victory. So why, when you have success on the feet, you dive right into someone's guard? I'll never understand that. Like, I understand you getting overly excited or whatnot, but man, patience. Back up, let him stand back up, give it back to him, because his legs were not underneath of him for a while. Actually, like, his legs were, when he got hurt in the previous round, his legs were not underneath him very well either. It took a while for Silva to kind of get his bearings back. And he got his bearings back because he was on the ground. Roberts jumped on him and let this time pass and let him recover. That is bad strategy right there. And we've seen that. I'm forgetting the gentleman's name, the one who lost that decision to Sean O'Malley sometime last year. Like, that same sort of thing. After O'Malley hurt his leg, and like, okay, your best path to victory is on the feet. Hey, let me jump on top of this guy now. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And Danny Roberts, whether you agree with that stoppage or not, Danny Roberts is so to blame for handing that victory over to Claudio Silva when he was staring right at that W and just decided to let it go. So, I mean, that's a lesson he'll learn. Danny Roberts has a ton of potential. He'll come back and do the damn thing. So there's that. All right. So I also need to stop using my touchscreen so much because it's like I'm pointing at the camera the whole time. And that's probably got to be really annoying for anybody watching. So apologize. So yeah, Jack Marshman versus John Phillips. Yeah, don't agree with the decision. Marshman wins the split decision. I just was not into this fight whatsoever. I mean, this was kind of a sloppy regional heavyweight fight. in my opinion. Of course, they fight at middleweight, but it felt like a sloppy heavyweight fight on a regional card to me. There wasn't a lot of good technique. Guys are just kind of swinging and gassing out and whatnot. But if you must know my scorecards, I had Phillips winning the first and the third round. Yeah, and that's pretty much all I got to say about that. This is another one where if you're crying robbery, you don't know what a close fight is. All right, next up, Arnold Allen wins the decision over Jordan Rinaldi. Yeah, not a lot to say about that. I mean, Arnold Allen definitely. I think he played this fight smart. He showcased some grappling chops. He wanted to get the rounds in. Looks like. Yeah, it is what it is, man. A legitimate win, but definitely not the most exciting performance there. Definitely want to talk about Mark Diakiese versus Joe Duffy. That was the final prelim bout. I was liking what I saw from Diakiese, man. I initially thought Duffy was going to put work in on Diakiese, but looks like I was wrong, man. There's a reason why the UFC did not cut this guy when he didn't perform up to the expectations we had against guys like Drakkar Klose or whatnot. So Joe Duffy, being such a good boxer and spending a good part of his career, like he left mixed martial arts for a little while just to improve his boxing, actually taking some boxing matches during that time and having some success, from what I understand, in the ring. That's something he wanted to put jiu-jitsu, and Joe Duffy has to be in there close. Diakiese took that away from him. Those calf kicks were beautiful. They were spot on. Like, he consistently landed those kicks. He specifically targeted that leg and affected Joe Duffy's footwork, which messed up his boxing, which means he couldn't approach the range that he would prefer that fight to be in as easily as he would otherwise. Diakiese, man, definitely showed out, man. I think that was the best we've seen him in the UFC. And granted, he had a spectacular finish in his first UFC bout. But you're looking at the quality of opposition. Joe Duffy is not an easy night for anybody. Joe Duffy, as we know, most famously known for being one of the guys to beat Conor McGregor before he got to the UFC. But let's listen to the names that have defeated Joe Duffy in his UFC run. Dustin Poirier. I think we've all heard of him. I think we all respect the hell out of Dustin Poirier, who is staring right now at an interim title opportunity in the lightweight division. James Vick, also another person to defeat Joe Duffy. James Vick, just outside of the top 10. I think he was in the top 10 actually when he fought Justin Gaethje and lost that fight, and just lost to Paul Felder as well. But James Vick proven himself to be a very, very, very effective lightweight who, with a record of 11-2, I believe it is no joke. So let's keep that in mind with James Vick. Or is he 11-3? He's 11-3. He's 13-3. He's 13-3. My fault. But yeah. So, yeah, man, like, to be on that list of people that beats Joe Duffy in the UFC, it means something. So Mark Diakiese, he means something, man, and he approached it in a very strategic fashion. He's a guy who got it done the smart way. Granted, I think when he's gonna have some issues moving up. You saw him really, really gasping for air. I want to say it started around middle of the second round. He really had trouble trying to catch his breath, but he was still dynamic. He was still able to do some of those crazy moves and still fast and still effective. Granted, he did slow down, and it seemed like he felt comfortable to get into some of those grappling exchanges after he wore out Duffy on the feet. He was able to. Those times that Duffy was able to get in close and initiate some clinch work and they got things to the ground, he was able to handle his business there. So I think Diakiese, man, with the proper development, you pair him up right, he can do things. But how stacked is lightweight? How stacked is lightweight that these two guys, as good as they are, as good as they've proven themselves to be, are not even close to touching that belt. That, I think, is something that we should get very, very, very excited about. So let's move on from there. In the meantime, Jay is confirming that, yes, James Vick was ranked number 10 when he fought Justin Gaethje. So shout out to me for having a fairly decent memory sometimes. So that's what's up. All right, so next up, I guess this fight is worth talking about for all the wrong reasons, and forgive me for royally screwing up these gentlemen's names, but Saperbek Safarov and Nick Nigumuranu, we'll just call him Nick, and Safarov, that's easy enough for me to say. But anyway, Safarov wins a very, very dominant decision, but the talk is not what Safarov was able to do right. It was everything he did wrong. I mean, like, what do you have to do to get disqualified around these parts, man? Like, I've never heard so many warnings for fence grabbing in my life. Like, that was all the warnings of fence grabbing from the last 6 UFC events rolled into one fight. That was insane. He kept grabbing the fence over and over and over again. And yes, Leon Roberts did deduct a point, but man, that should have been a disqualification at a certain point. Like, first of all, you don't deduct a point after 20 warnings. Sorry, like 2 warnings at best. And I think that's generous. Like, these rules exist for a reason. If someone is repeatedly breaking the rules and repeatedly showing to not care about the rules that the contest is being fought under, hey, you don't belong in the cage. It's that simple. Like, it really got to a point, I was joking around on Twitter where I thought, like, hey, maybe in this 3rd round, Safarov is going to start throwing soccer kicks and stomping him in the head just to see if Leon Edwards is awake, just to see if he's paying attention, because it was that bad. Like, it was ridiculous. So I just wanted to see how much further we were going to descend into anarchy with this one. And if you are Nick's cornerman, this one should be ashamed of yourselves letting this fight continue. On my scorecard, let me make sure this is right, because the deductions threw some of the math off that I was doing on the top of my head, man. But yeah, so first round scored 9-9 with the point deduction for the fence grab. And the next 2 rounds were 10-8 for Safarov. You know, why was that fight still continuing? Someone please explain to me why his corner let that continue, why the doctor wasn't stopping it with his face completely busted and he looked like a space alien. Why? That was ridiculous that was allowed to just carry on, and for all reasons. For the cornerman, for the doctor, and for the referee, all terrible job. Like, that was one of those fights that I alluded to where it's like you have an existential crisis watching it. It's one of those things like, why do I follow this sport so much? This is a travesty. This is trash. That was terrible. Yeah, all three cornermen, doctor, ref should be slapped upside the head for that one. That was super trash. All right, so enough about that one, because let's not feed any more energy to that one. Dan Ige destroys Danny Henry in the first round with a rear naked choke. Yeah, not a whole lot to say about this fight because it just happened in a flash. Like, nope, I liked it. All right, Molly McCann and Priscilla Cachoeira took place as well before that, and Molly McCann wins the decision. Priscilla Cachoeira, who was trying to rebound off of the disastrous UFC debut against Valentina Shevchenko. Man, there is nothing about this fight that gets me excited about future flyweight contenders. Sorry, like this was a terrible fight. Molly McCann looked better than she has in the past. She definitely got better, but man, this was not a good fight. It simply was just not a good fight. There was so little to like about this. So let's start with like Priscilla Cachoeira, like just so limited in what she was doing. Just, I mean, hands down, throwing single punches here and there. just seemed content to just do the same thing, although it was not working. Marlon McCann varying up her offense a lot more and trying to mix things up, but it just looked to me a lot like an amateur fight. You know, granted, I'm not jumping in there in the cage, so I'm not one to criticize, but so much I won't sit here and say, excuse me, I won't sit here and say that this fighter sucks or this fighter's terrible. But that wasn't UFC worthy material. I'll just put it that way. That fighting is that style of fighting, or that sort of fighting, I should say, is not something that we would expect from what is supposed to be the best promotion of MMA in the world. Doesn't belong there. Like that's regional level, guys on the ladies on the come up. That's what that is. That was very low quality. Very unhappy with that fight. And then also the cardinal sin. One of the things you can do in the cage to just make me just cringe every time is to fake a glove tap and then go for a strike. Priscilla Cachoeira doing that in the last round. I mean, how dirty was this too? It was like after the doctor steps in because McCann's eye is swollen shut and looks crazy, that immediately after the doctor allows us to continue, they touch gloves and she immediately goes for a knee. It's ridiculous. I hate when people do that. That is forever going to be trash. And there's no defense for that. Like, yes, I know you have to defend yourselves at all times. Like, that is a completely legal thing to do, but it's not about legality in this point. It's not about that it being in the rule set, just being a decent sportsman, just being a good competitor. That is not something you do. So total trash on that one. And Priscilla Cachoeira, just not UFC material. I'm sorry, not at this point. Maybe she will be, but as of right now, I'd be very surprised if she remains on this roster. So, final fight. I actually missed the first round of this fight. Mike Grundy defeats Nad Niramani by TKO in the second round with punches. So I missed the first round of this because I had the times wrong, and boom, there it was. So got there late. All right, so before we wrap things up, Jay also hit me with the info. Oh, he actually showed me the GIF of the backstage fight between Leon Edwards and Jorge Masvidal. And yes, we can confirm that is a hell of a three-piece that Masvidal landed. And fight of the night goes for Masvidal versus Till. Performance of the night bonuses go to Dan Ige and Jorge Masvidal. Masvidal, he was right. He was earning that extra $100,000 as he said he would in the post-fight speech. So that's what's up, man. All right, so let me go ahead and go through any YouTube comments that I may have missed. Oh yeah, Andrei Sukumanitov. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sukumatov was the guy that blew that fight against Sean O'Malley. So thanks, Owen, for that bit of info. But yeah, I think that'll wrap it up for the Walk of Shame. I appreciate everyone who jumped in on the chat with some questions, with some comments, and keeping me updated on the fight after the fight as well. So please, if you enjoy this video, please like, please subscribe to the channel. Please share it with all your like-minded friends on social media, and welcome your participation the next time. So as far as where you can find my work, that is Sherdog.com and MMA On Point. So for Sherdog.com, I have the good, bad, and the ugly, the post-fight column, which is going to be, of course, talking about UFC London. I will start writing that as soon as this video wraps. Ask Ant, my weekly mailbag column, just dropped today in the middle of the event. So go ahead, check that out. Tell me what you think and get some questions prepped for that next week. And then, of course, on Thursday evenings at 5 p.m. Pacific time, you can catch myself and my homie Jason Burgos, also of Sherdog.com, on the Sherdog.com YouTube channel for The Trenches, our weekly live chat. So welcome your participation on all those platforms. Also did another guest spot on Collider Sports MMA Takedown Show with my man Dennis. So go ahead and check out Collider Sports for that as well. Oh, and I know we got Errol Spence and Mikey Garcia coming up tonight for all the boxing fans that also enjoy mixed martial arts. I would suggest you jump on the homie Matt Hunter's MCR network. That's Mixed Combat Radio. He's going to keep you updated and all up to tune what's going on in the boxing world as well. So shout out to the homie Matt Hunter. Now, for MMA on Point, one of my videos just dropped. It is 10 post-fight speeches that won over the crowd. It's the latest script that they made into a video of mine. So please check that out, like and subscribe as well. So once again, thank you all. And you know what you got to. Oh, before I had to show this off. Normally, I got my Captain America painting right here, but my wife did a paint and sip last night, and I thought this painting was pretty cool. For one of her friends' birthday parties, they did a little paint and drinking wine stuff, and I like that. So I wanted to display it for everybody to see how talented my wife is. But anyway, so you know what you got to do. Go ahead, follow me on Twitter at AntWalkerMMA. And yes, you must stay beautiful. You must stay positive. You must stay ready to throw hands with anybody out here on that bullshit. And through it all, you must stay sexy. I will see you when I see you, everyone. Peace.